Thanks for that, Sarah. I'll welcome everybody in and start the meeting. I believe it's at 2 o'clock. So item 1 is apologies for absence. Any apologies for absence? Alex Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillors Rennick, Emmons, Thacker, Elliott, Tate, Antcliffe and Stokes. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I've got apologies from Councillor Higgin and Morley.
Thank you. Yeah,
Councillor Weatherall, Chair.
thanks for that, Andrew. I think that's all the apologies, and hopefully you can hear me now. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Kevin Gillett?
Item 7, the local government reorganisation update. Just to declare that I'm a member of Derbyshire County Council that has taken a position on this, but it's not one I support, so I don't think there's any problem in me speaking or participating today.
Okay, thanks for that. Charlotte Cupid?
Yeah, Chair, the same DCC declaration of interest, albeit not the same final position, I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Alex Dale?
Same interest, but don't believe that would prevent me from speaking on this matter. But I think it's obviously only draft interim proposals anyway, so I would assume that's the case.
Chair, it's not the draft interim proposals, it's the process.
Yeah.
It's the process, yeah. Thanks for that, Alex. Mark Foster?
If I could declare the same interest, County Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No? If not, item 3, minutes of the last meeting. To approve as a correct record and the Chair to sign the attached minutes of the Council meeting held on the 27th of January. Can we approve that as a correct record?
I'll move that now.
Been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, the correct record? I think that's passed. Thanks for that. Item 3 is Chair's announcement. I will say I've been quite busy collecting prizes for a raffle. We've got plenty of things along the corridor to be given out as prizes. Some of them are a year's free unlimited membership of the leisure centres given by Chris Mills, leisure manager. Some signed artist books from Pollyanna Pickering. Trenton Monkey Forest, a request for a charity ticket donation from them to them. Chesterfield Football Club, 2 tickets to a league game at Chesterfield. I don't know whether anybody would want that, but it's there. Renishire Hall and Gardens, a family day pass to the gardens. We've actually got 2 of those day passes. I won one in another raffle and I've donated it. So I've got two day passes to Renishire Hall. White Peak Distillery, I believe it's to the south of the district. Distillery tour for 2 voucher. Chesterfield Golf Club, a round of golf for 4 people. A Tropical Butterfly House, that will be a free ticket into entry to that. Mosborough Hall, luxury afternoon tea for 2. Chesterfield Bowl, an hour of free bowling for up to 8 people. And various other miscellaneous items, including a bottle of Bailey's liqueur, a picture of the Peak District, a drinking glass with the red arrows on it, a basket full of biscuits, a bottle of Henderson's Relish, if anybody would like.
Now you're talking.
Selection of jams and other stuff. So hopefully the raffle tickets are still in the room and you might be able to buy them later if you've not already bought any. The only other thing I have to say is last week I had the opportunity to be shown round Claycross Active, which was, of course, Charlie Park, by Chris Mills. The work's progressing apace, and I think it's looking really well. The roof's been on for some time, and it's covered in about, I think it's 360 solar panels. So the building should be energy efficient and low carbon, and be an asset to the energy of the building and the costs. Inside there's a huge sports hall, a cafe, 2 swimming pools were being tiled whilst I was there. They look marvellous. There's going to be a big soft play area for younger children, and a separate play area for teenagers, a bit like the thing that's on the television. What's that called? Gladiators. Anyway, I don't think I'll be partaking. Large fitness suite, a spinning room, a special fitness room for people who need rehabilitation or are disabled or a bit older. I might be in that category myself, and need to use power-assisted machines rather than the main fitness machines. There'll also be a National Health Service mother and baby clinic, and Citizens Advice drop-in centre. The site manager, Adam, said he expects the completion date to be the June the 3rd, and send our thanks to all who've worked on the project, and I'm sure it'll be a great asset to the community and the district. So that's my announcements for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll move on to the next item, which is leader's announcements. Leader of the council, Nigel Barker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, that's good. And given it, we're only 5 weeks ago since we had the last council meeting, you'll be pleased to know I ain't got a lot to say.
Yeah.
So, in that meantime, we've met with the Citizens Advice Bureau, haven't we? Like I've been doing, we're having these meetings, which were very productive, and we reassured them of our continued support, and they got some facts and figures of all the work that they're doing in North East Derbyshire, so we were pleased to meet them. We did have a meeting scheduled with the Integrated Care Board, the Chair and the Chief Exec, but that had to be postponed. But this relationship is something we're really keen to keep going and developing, because obviously it is an issue that gets flagged up loads of times about the doctors' provisions and things like that. And I know there's a paper on the agenda about local government reform, but I do really want to spell it in no uncertain terms, I think, like I did last time, because some people don't seem to have got that message yet, that there is no intention of any authority in Derbyshire wanting to go outside the established boundaries of the county of Derbyshire. And I'm going to keep stressing that, because I know there's literature flying about that's contesting that. All the districts, boroughs and the city of Derby are committed to working together to develop options to create new unitary councils using the criteria set out by the government and staying within the county footprint. So that'll do for today on my update, and we will come back to that local government reform in a bit. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Nigel. Next item 6, public participation in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule number 8 to allow members of the public to ask questions about the Council's activities for a period of up to 15 minutes. No questions have been submitted under Procedure Rule number 8 for this meeting, so I will pass on to the next item. Item 7, Local Government Reorganisation Update. This decision, as before the Council, is about the process for our participation in local government reorganisation. This is to ensure that the Council is part of the process in Derbyshire. There is no recommendation on a preferred option, and therefore there's no decision to be made on the preferred option. A full debate on the reorganisation occurred at the last meeting. There will be opportunity to consider the outcome of the process and the reorganisation and the preferred model before final submission to the government in November. So the leader will now present.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Sorry, Nigel.
That's all right. Oh, thank you, and I'd like to thank Lee for your update that you've prepared there. I think there's a lot in that. I think it's fair to say, Lee, that things have been a bit manic over the last few weeks regarding this topic. There seems to be a meeting every other day on it. But I do believe this paper spells out where we are on this point in time as a council. Since we had the last full council, we have had the letter that we were all waiting for from Jim McMahon, which not only said that the county elections would have to go ahead, but also set out the criteria that the government expected from this local government reorganisation. The report includes the various criteria in some detail, so I'll not go through them. We also know that there are and will be proposals on the table following the invite from government for various reorganisation proposals. This report essentially seeks approval for us to engage with others across the county to work out and come up with the best proposal now that we know those parameters. Approval for us to be at the table and influence the shape of those proposals. Our place at the table is really important if we are to seek out the best outcome for the people of North East Derbyshire. We know our area best and the needs of those that live here. Additionally though, understanding and valuing as highly as I do the competence, knowledge, professionalism, overall culture of our organisation and staff, I feel very strongly that any proposal that emerges will be a better one with our input, ideas and challenge, and that one that emerges without it. And I know you've been well involved, Lee and Matt and Jane, in all these negotiations. As the report says, at this point there is not a definitive proposal to decide upon. This will emerge over time and be brought back here before the council. We are at the beginning of a very long process. This is about staying in the game, as we say, having an opportunity to exert our influence, having an opportunity to ensure that whatever outcome is reached, it will have the greatest potential to serve our communities the best. Having said all that, I do believe we had a full debate at the last full council meeting about the merits or not of reorganisation. Therefore, I hope we don't revisit that debate. We must commit to being involved in the conversation with all the other councils. Hopefully the county will get involved in those conversations as we go forward to come up with a proposal that is in the best interests of the people of North East Derbyshire. And like I said earlier, and I will say again and keep on saying, within the boundaries of the county of Derbyshire. With that, I'd like to move the recommendations in 1 and 2A and B. To note the letter and criteria set out with the Minister of State of Local Government and delegate authority to the Managing Director in consultation with Cabinet and members to A, represent the Council in Derbyshire for wide discussions and negotiations to develop a Derbyshire-wide proposal or proposals that meet the criteria set out by the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution, and B, submit interim proposals to MHCLG in March to gain feedback on options being considered. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nigel. Any comments or questions? Or
Yes.
has it been seconded? Yeah, it's been seconded. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Recognising that officers will be working extremely hard, not just in this council, but across all of the councils to try and pull these proposals together as quickly as possible, I am a little bit disappointed that we're only, 16, 17 days is it until the deadline to submit the proposals. We have a full council meeting here today. Rather than delegating authority, we could be discussing what this district council wishes to put forward as an interim proposal at this meeting, and it's disappointing we're not able to do that. And I think, I thank Nigel for his comments in terms of trying to provide some clarity, but it does still feel like there's a distinct lack of clarity from, it's very clear what the county thinks, and the county's been pretty honest about that, and you might not like the proposals the county have put forward, but they are on the table. So far we've had an announcement from all of the leaders of the district and boroughs to suggest they favour a north and south inclusive of Derby City, but there's still not very much clarity beyond that. We don't know where Amber Valley, for example, sits. We don't know. There is the issue of the Derbyshire Dales, which stretches right down to being adjacent to Derby City, but I guess would be part of a northern Derbyshire and not a southern. I don't believe it's possible to split existing district or boroughs, although perhaps you could provide more clarity on that. And despite everything that Nigel said, there is still this risk that's widely reported of High Peak going off to Manchester. You know, the MP's said it's a no-brainer several times. It's been widely reported that in the media that Erewash had flirted with the idea of Nottinghamshire. I know that the leader of the council there backtracked, a week or two later, but I think when he realised probably how unpopular that would be. So, you know, I appreciate the attempt to try and give the reassurance to people, but it doesn't really feel like there's very much clarity, and therefore I think anything could be on the table from my perspective. I'm also concerned around the north-south split. You know, ultimately the thing that's driving this from government is savings, and if you by the very nature of having two councils rather than the one, there is the duplication, there is the issues around social care and ensuring that it's got the scale, the economies of scale in particular, social care, adults and children's. So I think, you know, this warrants more debate, and we as a council ought to be able to debate interim proposals before they're put forward, because ultimately interim proposals will be the thing that then ultimately makes it into final proposals. So I think we should have that earliest possible engagement. It should come to full council. I don't think we should delegate that to the managing director in consultation with cabinet. And therefore I would propose that we amend the recommendations by removing 2.B and replace with organise an extraordinary full council to enable discussions on any draft interim proposals prior to submission to MHCLG. I can move that, Chair.
Is it seconded? Charlotte Cupid seconded it. So Alex has moved an amendment that we organise an extraordinary council meeting with interim proposals. Does anybody want to speak on that? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. 100% agree with what Alex has just said. I don't think this can be delegated to Cabinet at all. It has to be a full council decision. I don't necessarily agree with his logic that fewer councils means less charge, because actually you're going to introduce more layers of management in order to actually administer a larger authority. So I think at this point in time, everything's got to be on the table. And I don't think a handful of people can be deciding that what's in the best interest of North East Derbyshire. It's bad enough that it's just potentially 53 when it's affecting 100,000 people, but to take that down to a handful of cabinet members, I think is lunacy. So 100% back him on his amendment.
Thank you for that. And anybody else want to come in? It is about the process, as has been said. Frank Adlington Stringer, and then Ross. Frank.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will fully support the amendment. I think that this so-called devolution is taking away the power of the district councils, and I think that it's incredibly important that we have a say right here and right now. I would really urge both parties, particularly the Conservatives, to stop with their scaremongering about what may or may not happen. I think it's really important we have a sensible discussion, and that we make sure that district council voices are heard, and the county council is currently not doing that. So I would just like us to be able to, as a group, come together and look at these proposals and make sure that we're all united on that, as we should be for the residents of North East Derbyshire. So I will be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Ross Shipman?
Yeah, I agree with the amendment as well. I think it needs a lot more debate than quickly pushing this through today. It's a real important issue. So yeah, I'm supporting the amendment, and I'll save my comments for the actual main motion once hopefully this passes.
Thanks. Helen Weatherall?
I've got a question actually, Chair. So is it appropriate at this point to raise that question, or shall I wait until after a vote on the amendment?
Tell us the question.
My question is about the cost. So I've noted that KPMG, that's a question I raised last time, have been appointed as the project managers for this project, programme of works. So that'll be about £60,000 immediately. There'll then be the transition costs, so there's reference to the costs of the transition. Is there a cap on that cost? And have we done an impact assessment on what that cost is going to mean for the residents of North East Derbyshire in terms of reduced services, reduced quality of services? Thank you.
Thanks for that. Maybe somebody else could answer it. Lee? Is it because we've got Mark in?
Oh, that's
oh,
it.
there we are.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks for that,
Councillor
Lee.
Foster. Yeah, I can attempt to answer it. Jane can come in if need be. But in the finance and risk section there, I'm assuming that's where you picked up that 10,000 from. So there's a need to have worked at pace. So the government has been clear on that March 21st date. That is for each individual council. It's likely to be a bit less than that, in all honesty, for this piece of work. The next piece of work is, we don't even understand the costs yet. That's got to be determined, and I'm sure Leader's going to come back on some of those questions in a bit, but it won't hurt to say that this March 21st date is purely a gateway. It's a check-in. It's not a definitive position, and there's not a definitive position going to be presented to government, as far as I can see, in March, between the district councils and the city councils. I've been involved in every meeting, and there's a number of proposals still being chewed over. And that's because, even though the deadline is 21st of March, government ideally want one proposal to come forward, but they're happy to take more than one in a realistic world where there's difference of opinion or there's differing views. So the March date is just you're on the right track, some feedback coming back that will ultimately then feed into the ultimate proposal due in November. So to answer your question, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to how much it's going to cost between now and November. The likelihood is, if we're sort of scaling this £10,000 up, who knows, it might be a few low hundreds of thousands between all authorities. So it might be 50 grand, I don't know at this stage. But what I do know is we haven't really got any choice on whether we do it. And the other thing I do know is to try and do this without external support is going to be really difficult, because it's a mammoth piece of work on top of the day job. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks to that, to the principal officer, managing director. I don't think don't know this has ever been an arboricultural officer. Thank you, Lee. Mark Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in complete support of this amendment, and something as important as this should be brought back to full council. Just echo the words of our council leader, Councillor Barker, when this administration first started. It's supposed to be one of openness and transparency and collaboration. I think the words were collaboration. It's not my word, but I remember collaboration being a word used. Something as important as this should be brought back to full council, so in full support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. Does Nigel want to come back in?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know. I thought we might run
Yeah.
houses a bit more on that. I don't see any point in that amendment, to be honest. Exactly what Lee said. It's just a gateway. The 21st of March. We've got KPMG working at it. We might, those excluding the county council, might submit 2 options that we will then work forward with till November, and then I can assure everybody in this room, before any decision in November is made, we will bring that back to this council for a decision. At this point in time, we've set the process in that we've got KPMG looking at all the options. We're all talking to one another, like I said in my introduction. Nearly every other day, you're meeting or I'm meeting with leaders. So all that's fluid, and we haven't got a lot of time, Alex, you're right. And to bring it back here would not achieve anything at this point in time. In the future, and we will keep updating you as things keep happening, and I'm sure you'll pick things up in the press or wherever, because we do need to move at pace. We know the criteria, and it's quite rigid. I've been to LGA conferences, I've spoke with ministers myself. They're clear that this is going to happen. We can't put our head in sand and pretend it's not. And by us, we've just got to work within that criteria and get the best deal we can for the people of North East Derbyshire. And by us having another special meeting to just discuss exactly what's on table now, well, one thing is to waste money and time, but it won't achieve it. So I don't see any benefit in that amendment. Thank you.
Thanks for that. You want to come back in, Alex?
Yeah, as a right to reply, I mean that's disappointing to hear it wouldn't achieve anything, because what that's essentially saying is that the views of your own members in your own district council, you know, just an exercise in collecting those views on potential options won't achieve anything. Well, I think it does achieve anything. It makes the process more representative, gives everyone the view, and I appreciate all the comments from other councillors on this side. You know, completely understand that not everyone will agree with me over different aspects, but that's the whole point of this, isn't it? It's about having that debate and having that discussion, and you know, recognising different options and talking about the merits and positives, and hopefully reaching a consensus and having the collaborative approach that Mark said. So, yeah, as I say, I do think this is necessary. I think it is important enough for us to meet again to go through it and have that proper debate. So, yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. Can I just ask you to read out the full amendment again?
So it would be to remove recommendation 2.B and replace with organise an extraordinary full council meeting to enable discussion on any draft interim proposals prior to submission to MHCLG.
Thanks for that. So we're going to vote on this amendment that's proposed by Alex. I ask you to vote on your screens now for the amendment. Have we all voted?
Not quite.
Not quite. I think there's 43 of us in the room. Richard needs his badge validating. Oh, so thanks for that. I think we've all voted now, if I add it up, 20, 30, 43. So the voting shows that the amendment's lost. The amendment's lost. So we would go back to the substantive motion that's been moved by Councillor Barker. Do you want to reiterate that, or shall we go to the vote?
There's a recommendation there on page 21 of the report, 1 and 2, A and B.
Yeah.
You don't need to read it out again, do we?
No. So I'll ask you all to vote for the original motion that was.
Yeah. Are we not carrying on the debate with the original motion? Because we went straight into the amendment. We're not actually talking about the motion itself. We were talking about whether we should actually speak about the thing in a week.
Can do, but nobody had indicated it before. That's why you moved to the vote. Now,
You can come and speak on the original motion, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, thank you. I think this says a lot about the leader's character, that he doesn't want to get the rest of us involved in these discussions. He won't fight the decision that's been taken by government. He's basically just agreed, well, we'll go along with the process. He basically shown his negotiating hand before we've even started by saying, it's happening, we can't do anything about it. I would actually disagree, given the fact that they haven't delayed Derbyshire County Council elections, because I think that gives us more time to plan what's happening for this district. I don't think we need to be rushing, other than this deadline in March where we're coming up with proposals. We haven't got, you know, it's not, the decision what we're doing hasn't got to be taken for months. So I think we really should be discussing this in much more detail. It concerns me that the options that are going to be on the table are basically going to be what the leaders of the councils think are legitimate options. So where does that leave all the other options that are being tossed aside that actually most of the elected councillors across this county might actually agree with? I think it's quite concerning that we just throw in our views to one side and pursuing potentially options that none of us agree with, other than the 8 leaders of the borough and district councils in Derbyshire. So I think we need more time to discuss this properly, and hopefully we get that, even if the proposals that are put forward in 2 weeks' time are sent to government and we get some feedback. I hope we can discuss this further more, and perhaps we can review all the options that are on the table, not just a select few which the leaders think are appropriate. And I think it's actually an insult to all our residents that we represent across North East Derbyshire, because we all represent diverse wards. Not one ward in this district is the same. So I don't think the leader has got all the viewpoints that he needs to go to these negotiations and put forward this plan, which is allegedly the best for North East Derbyshire. I mean, personally, I agree the best for North East Derbyshire is that this doesn't go ahead. But you're right, we do need to be part of them discussions. But that requires all the views of elected councillors and our residents that we represent. And I hope he really takes that on board when he's going into these discussions and talking about this district, and that he really understands what our residents want.
Thank you for that. I'm sure Nigel's, the leader for a reason, acting in good faith for all the residents of the district, and this is about the process. He's laid it out in some detail that we note this, and it will be coming back to the council, and that there's no options been put forward as yet. So I'm going to go to the vote and ask that we vote on the original motion. I don't know whether anybody wants to come back. Sorry, Joe Birkin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of information, a bit of concern from Alex and from Ross about not involving people. When are we going to involve people? If you read through the requirements of the letter, one of the things that we will have to do, that Lee and Nigel will have to do, is to show how we have consulted with the people of North East Derbyshire, with the businesses of North East Derbyshire, with the communities of North East Derbyshire. It's in the letter from government. There's no way that we can that these two or us today could say that's it, done and dusted. That's what we'll do. We have to go back and show how we have consulted.
Yeah, so it's about the process. Stephen Reid.
Just a question to follow on from Councillor Birkin there. Will the leader of the council, will that consultation also include other members of the council who may have points of view in that consultation, and what form will that take?
What form will it take? I'm sure the decision will come back to the council.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Just to answer those things, yeah, I was going to say that, Joe, that we have got a consult, and it's no coincidence that every time I switch my phone on, there's a consultation from the county council on how great their offer is. Well, so we can do a similar thing, and I have responded. So there will be an opportunity for all that, and obviously we will bring it back here where members will be able to comment. We know, what people are saying. There is not a lot of time. We're at this point, and I will say it. This is just to show a gateway where civil servants or the government can look at what we're thinking of doing and saying either you're on the right track or you aren't. And then we've got till November to consult, to build up a proper argument within the criteria that the government set. Within that letter, like Joe says, there's lots of different things we've got to show we've done. And then somebody will have to make a decision what's the best. And that's where we're at. And it is a process that we're going through. And let's just say I'm trying my best. And you'll have to trust me on that.
Well, thanks for that. I'm going to move to the vote that we vote on the process that's to be followed, and we note what's been said and delegate authority, as in 2A and 2B. All those in favour of the motion? Well, thanks for that. I think everybody's voted and the motion is carried. That was item 7. I'm going to move on to item 8, level of council tax. This decision is about the council as the billing authority setting the council tax from the aggregated precepts. I think we weren't quite sure last time what they were going to be from the other authorities, the police and that. It's not about the council's budget, which was dealt with at the last council meeting, and it's not an opportunity to revisit the decisions made last time. So Councillor Kerry will move the recommendation 1.
Yes, Chair. As the council will be aware, the Localism Act of 2011 requires us as a billing authority to calculate the council tax requirements each year. Each preceptor approves their demand when setting their annual budget, as we did on the 27th of January. In order to calculate the council tax requirements for 25-26, the demand of the Derbyshire County Council, the police authority, the fire authority and the local parish councils has been taken into account, as well as our approved demand. The table in paragraph 2.5 sets out the levels of council tax for the year, accumulating all the preceptors' demands. The tables at 2.4 and 2.5 contain provisional information from Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Authority. Following the authorities' meeting on the 27th of February, this has now been confirmed as per the report. Therefore, the recommendation in 2 on this report is no longer required. I would like to move the recommendations that the Council formally approves the council tax for the financial year 2025-26 as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
I'll second that.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kerry. Any comments, Alex Dale?
Yeah, I've taken the hint. We're not revisiting the previous debate. Obviously, it goes without saying that our group didn't support the council tax increase, but we will vote for this because we recognise it's procedural, and we've obviously got to set the council tax. So yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And just before you report, if you look at the in 2.5, and you pick your parish and your band, and you go along and down, and you come to a number and divide it by 12, that will tell you how much per month that you will be paying at the council tax. It looked a lot worse when I only divided it by 10. It looked a big increase, but we've gone to 12 equal instalments instead of the 2 free months.
Yeah. Which one?
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. If there's no other comments, this will be a recorded vote as required by statute, so I'll ask you to vote for the recommendation 1. Oh, thanks for that. The system seems to be working. We've got 43 people have voted. There's 43 in the room and there's no dissension. Thanks very much. That's probably a first, is it? I'll move on to item 8, pay policy statement, 2025 to 2026. Yeah, is Lee Hicking going to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, more than happy to. So, members will be aware that the Localism Act requires the council to produce and publish a pay statement. The Act defines remuneration widely to include not just pay but also fees, allowances, benefits in kind and termination payments, amongst other things. As you'll see, our policy includes an introduction that sets the scene in terms of our organisational belief, values and culture, all of which I believe paints a picture of fairness and equality. It also includes a whole workforce overview, details on the lowest and highest paid employees, senior management grading structure, statutory roles and remuneration, terms and conditions of service, other payments including things like elections and honoraria, and other financial benefits including pensions, flexible retirement, holidays and termination. All in all, the policy very much meets with the guidance set out by the Local Government Association when producing the statement. Another key element of our policy, our pay policy statement, is the relationship between salaries. So here at NEDDC, we set out clearly the differences between the highest paid officers and the lowest. The paper highlights that the difference between the top earner, so that was me, and the median, and just to remind myself, the median is the middle value when all of the data set is ordered from least to greatest. That ratio is 4.48 to 1. And with the top earner and the mean salary, so mean by adding all the numbers in the data set together and then dividing by the number of values in the set, that being a ratio of 3.96 to 1. And we know, because of the recent work we've done in the past couple of years, that is in keeping but still fair within this sector, and in particular in comparison to our near neighbours around us. Hopefully this gives this council some reassurance that this ratio, along with the rest of the pay policy statement, that we're running a very fair and prudent ship here when it comes to pay. The recommendations are on page 45, but I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, Chair.
Thanks for that. Any questions or comments about the pay policy statement? If not, oh, Helen Weatherall.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was a question on that relationship between salaries, so it was helpful to know what that ratio is. But I wondered, and you referenced this a little bit, but I wondered if it's possible to get some benchmarks, both national and local, so we can just do a comparator. I dare say you are, you know, on the favourable side of that, but it'd be helpful just to get that data in there. Thank you.
Lee.
Yeah, I can come back on that. Councillor Weatherall, so without going through and listing every organisation, the average is 5.1 between the top earner and median, and some are even around 6.1, but within the main, we're there or thereabouts, if not just a bit under. So again, ours is 3.96 to 1.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I don't see any.
Can I move that,
oh, yeah. The recommendation that we approve it, yeah. You've moved it. It's been moved and seconded. That the recommendation is council approves the pay policy statement. I'll take it by show of hands. All those in favour? Any against? One or two against. I think it's carried. Next item is item 10, proportionality of the council and appointments to committees. There's been a table in the minutes appended. Don't know whether there's been any amendments to that. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The original report was drafted as being no changes because we're very close to the annual meeting and there was only one meeting that could be affected, one meeting still to be held. That relied on a unanimous vote of yourselves, and unfortunately it became clear that that wouldn't happen. So accordingly, I'm putting forward a change to what you have in the report. This affects only the Conservative group and Councillor Reid. The change is that the joint ICT committee will have Councillor Dale on it, and the Business Scrutiny Committee will have Councillor Neil Baker. Thank you, Chair.
That's not me.
No, it's Neil Baker.
Okay, does anybody wish to speak to this, or that take it as read that Councillor Neil Baker on the business and Councillor Dale on the ICT? Shall I take a vote on this by a show of hands? Does anybody want to move it? Oh, sorry. Councillor Cornwall.
So just for clarification, Councillor Reid is still on the Business Scrutiny Committee. That's what this report says.
Yeah, if I might, Chair, that was the point of the change, that Councillor Reid would come off the Business Scrutiny, and because the original report did say that he would stay on. You're quite correct.
But you didn't say that he would come off it. You just said that Councillor Neil.
My
Barker would
apologies.
be.
What I meant is
because he is under another committee. He's under another party. That's why I'm asking.
Okay. I apologise if I didn't make it clear. It's the Conservative Party's nomination to that committee. This is their right under the statute, and they have made that Councillor Neil Baker.
So, can we get this rewritten? Of
course.
Yep.
Thanks for that. So, just to make sure, the alteration on this is Councillor Dale on the ICT committee, Councillor Baker on the business. Yeah. I'll take it by a show of hands. Are we in favour of that? Thank you. Any against? Thanks for that. Item 11, to answer any questions from members asked under procedure rule number 2, 9.2. So the first question submitted is from Councillor Baker, not Barker, Baker to Councillor Barry. I think we've all read it on the paper. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Baker, or shall I just put it straight to Councillor Barry?
If Councillor Barry's happy, and I'll take it as read, and I'll answer a bit more in my supplementary.
Thanks for that. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Baker, for your question. I did think it was Nigel asking me a question himself, which I thought was a bit weird, but there you go. The decisions at the Asset Management Board are those which fall within the key decision limits and are therefore delegated to officers as stated in the Constitution. Any key decisions are for the Cabinet to decide. You call for the leader to commit to consider making this board more accessible. This is something that we already do. We established the Asset Management Board. Sorry, I'll have to turn that to pick my granddaughter up from school. I've switched it on. Thank you. We established the Asset Management Board, which is made up of 2 Cabinet members and the senior officers from the Council and Ricknold. The Board will and do consult with local members, and any representations made by them are incorporated into the final report before any decisions are made. You may recall the recent proposals with Wingerworth Lido. Asset Management went out to local members and invited them to comment on the proposals. There were no representations against the proposals, and this was a consideration in the decision making. Asset Management Board will continue to involve local members, but I must say it is imperative that local members stay alert and active in order that they do not miss anything which may be of consequence at a later date. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. Do you wish to come back with a supplementary, Neil?
Thank you for that, Councillor Barry. Well, in this instance, the communication broke down, and on the 9th of January, I emailed Lee Hickin to ask if there's any truth in the rumours circulating that the Clay Cross Angling Club was to cease using Wingerworth Lido in June of this year, and the pond would be turned into a wildlife project, or the pond area and its area. And Lee asked Damien to respond to me, who was the director in charge, I believe, and he did. And he told me that this had been decided at the Asset Management Board, and that the notice to quit would be given to the fishing club, so they cease on the 30th of June. And he reminded me of an email sent to ward members. I couldn't find this email, find no trace of it. I certainly couldn't find a follow-up to this email, and I couldn't find any consultation with the parish council. I also then took the liberty of looking on the council's website, see if I could find any minutes or records or agenda for this board.
Can I just say, is this a question or?
It's a
have you got a question?
supplementary is coming shortly, Chair.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of background to it.
Yeah.
That I couldn't find any documentation that I could refer to. And so that prompted my question. And supplementary is, in view of that, could I ask that a meeting is set up with the ward members and members of the parish council to review the reason for this decision, which affected quite a lot of people in Wingworth, please? And could we give consideration to publishing some form of record or minutes, but obviously not of the confidential business items where council's finances don't want to be disclosed? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. Can I come back with that too, Jane? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the latter bit first. The notes that are taken at the meeting, there are notes taken at the meeting, but it isn't a formal meeting, and therefore the notes are not published. However, the decisions will be recorded through the delegated decision and cabinet process in line with the Constitution. In relation to the fact you didn't get, you're saying you didn't receive the communications, all I can do in regards to that is to go back and try and investigate as to why you didn't receive them. And in relation to your request for a meeting, again, I will have to take that back to the Asset Management Board and feed back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Move on to question B from Councillor Dale to Councillor Kerry. Do you wish to speak to it, or shall we ask Councillor Kerry to answer? Thanks. Pat Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Dale, the refurbishment of the reception area, which included the refurbishment of the former HR office as a temporary reception area to maintain service delivery, was £150,000, determined through competitive tendering. The works are a contribution to the enabling works to relocate Racknell Homes into Mill Lane, delivering significant year-on-year savings. That will be £85,000 because the ITC section will go into the old HR office. It has been 10 years since the reception was refurbished, and it is our role to maintain valuable public assets, especially in areas where we can improve the customer experience. The works included upgrading the LED lighting, the reception counter, the internal fire doors, the floor and carpet tiles, the stairs and carpets and the treads, and an extra 5,000 went on signage, plus labour costs. The works were funded 100% from the capital programme, which is funded from capital receipts.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kerry. Is that satisfactory, or have you got a supplementary?
A bit of a supplementary. Yeah, thank you for that. Useful to know the information. I think a lot of people I've spoken to who've been in recently, I think it looks very nice and it looks nice and modern, but can't really see what's actually changed. And I'm wondering why it was really necessary, and whether Councillor Kerry thinks it's good value for money, given the the financial challenges that all local authorities face. And wasn't the original plan to have Ricknell co-located in the reception, so it was a joint reception between the council and Ricknell? That might have made a bit more sort of sense for having a refurbishment there.
Thanks for that. Councillor Kerry, could you reply?
Two things about that. I do think it was value for money. When you look at any asset, keeping it up to date and modernised makes the asset more valuable. I look at certain areas, particularly at County Hall, and think that they're going to receive 35,000 million, to make a hotel at County Hall. I think the million and a bit that we think we might get for the building that will finally be vacated is more realistic than your sort of exercise. You know, you can't let it just go down to rack and ruin. The people that work in the reception, it was cold, the floor was wet, it was uneven, the gas fire and the old fires had to be taken out, and I think it's well worth the money. And as I say, the last people to come through from Ricknold will be the ICT, and they will go into the refurbished HR office.
Thank you
and
for
I've
that.
got the reports about. I'll leave that one.
Thank you for that. And swiftly moving on, item 12, to consider any motions from members under procedure rule number 10. Motion from Councillor Reid. Do you want to propose the motion?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to first start by thanking the Leader of the Council. I had 2 issues within my area this week, or this last month, and true to his form, he said his doors are always open. I brought them to his attention, and him and the Council staff and officers of the Council were very helpful in trying to come to a suitable arrangement to address those issues. So thank you very much. I recently went to the East Midlands Council General Meeting. So a group of councillors, I think all members are invited to that. We tend to get emails that say this is on, and it's for meeting of councillors from all over the district, all over the East Midlands. And it's quite informative. I've been to a couple. I think I saw the Leader of the Council at one last year at some point. Other than that, I was surprised not to see anyone else there except for Alex Dale and myself. One of the things that was interesting is a report that came across, a document of which I cannot name or cite stats from because unfortunately it is confidential and from that place, and cannot bring that up here. However, it seems to me that given some of the information that's coming up or emerging and in consultation with officers, I know we've currently just redone our social housing strategy for 2024, and there's a really good report. The council, very excellent work from our officers, and we all support our team. But in speaking to some of the senior officers and asking them about some of these issues raised, there seems to be some emerging factors that council weren't aware of and wouldn't have taken into account. And what I'm really seeking to do with this motion is to get it back to, or get it to scrutiny to actually look at some emerging factors that may actually be included. Keeping in line that our social housing numbers at the moment within our district sit at around 2,200 people approximately currently on social housing waiting list, and it looks like there are some external factors that could significantly impact on that. And I know homelessness is one of the key issues that is actually putting some pressure and can do. Our homelessness budget for North East Derbyshire last year was £30,000 for the year. This year it's 120,000. And so I think it's something that all members need to be aware of, that there are other pressures that are coming given national pressures and other things that we need to address. So that said, if I can get back to the motion, I can read as written.
We don't need to read the whole motion out.
No, look, I don't need to read the whole. If everyone's got the motion in front of them, I won't need to read it out. Just council to note what I've said and push through to scrutiny committee to actually look at those factors.
Thanks for that. Is it seconded? Charlotte, you seconded it? Yes.
Sorry, I broke it. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, happy to second this motion. I think it's an important one to refer to the scrutiny committee. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of points. In particular, obviously, the planning policy changes that are likely to come through. I think it's important that we consider, we've debated extensively at council the wider impact, but specifically the impact on Ricknold, obviously the council and social housing, but also specifically item 3 of the resolution in relation to the priority bands for social housing. I think all of us as ward members receive a lot of casework, understandably, from residents who are bidding for different properties, and obviously we have the 4 bandings through Ricknold and Home Options. But it often feels quite arbitrary, and I know it's got to be set somewhere because otherwise, you wouldn't want to make sort of 10 bandings because then you still sort of have the similar issue. But I do wonder, and this is, for scrutiny to consider if this motion is accepted, whether there is an option to bring in sort of sub-bands, because I think that that would actually inform residents a lot more. So you could have like a 1, 2A, 2B, 2C, because I think it would inform residents about where they stand in terms of bidding. Because quite often that's the sort of source of the casework is, you know, people get a band and they want to move property or they need to move property, but they're not quite clear about where they sit or, you know, how in terms of planning for their future. So yeah, fully support the motion and happy to second it, and can come back at the end of any final.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I've got Michael Durrant's name was next, but Frank's is next on the list. I think I'll have to go to Frank, if that's okay. Frank Edlington Stringer. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I don't think I need to. Like, reading in between the lines of this motion, and I know that this is our first council meeting with a now reformed councillor here, and welcome to the council, but it seems that straight away we're having national political issues brought to council, and the mention of asylum seekers in here, in this document, which are a very small minority of people in this country, and a group of people that need protection. And to see the Conservatives second this motion and jump in bed straight away with them is quite horrifying, really. And so I would really urge council to look at this motion for what it is. It says a number of times that emerging factors will have an impact to accommodate overflow demand that may not have been reported, and that we need a system that adequately reflects the urgency and needs of different groups. I'm not sure what I'm reading, but I don't like it one bit. And we have to come together and reject this. And any suggestion that this is to support the needs of our community, I think they're talking about one community specifically, and we have to make sure that we come together as a council and absolutely throw this out right here and right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Michael Durrant.
Thank you, Chair. Frankie beat me to the punch, man. For those who are not aware, I am the Chair of the Community Scrutiny Committee, and so there's a number of points I want to raise here. I'll not belabor some of the things that Councillor Edlington Stringer has already mentioned, but I would note that with what Councillor Reid has just said, that alarms me quite heavily. But he has referred to the MC General Meeting, but he seems like he hasn't referred back to the Community Scrutiny Committee, because some of the recommendations in this, to assess the impact of the NPPF changes, well, that was done in September 2024, where David Thompson came to the Scrutiny Committee looking at that draft proposal as part of the 5-year plan. That has remained largely unchanged since then, and David Thompson will be...
Point of order.
Apologies, Councillor Durrant, whether I missed it or not, some of the changes is not directly to the NPPF. Some of the things I found out with this document will have an impact that hasn't yet been addressed. So, still a valid point.
Thanks for that. Carry on, Councillor Durrant.
Okay, thank you for that. So, just to finish what I was saying before I move on and address that point, is the NPPF is part of our work programme. It's part of something we reviewed. David Thompson is coming back, will be coming back. I've spoken to him earlier today as well. So it's going to be on, it's still on our work programme. The Scrutiny Committee will decide, and it will remain on our work programme, most likely. The review of also, just before on that, you mentioned housing strategy, private sector housing and homelessness. That's part of homelessness. So that has been looked at as well as part of our Community Scrutiny Committee. That is being done. We have had the social housing, we've had private housing, and we've had our social housing, part of that, and other issues come along. It is something we can consider as part of our work programme. There's no reason why we can't look at homelessness. We're actually doing quite well in North East Derbyshire for homelessness. The other thing is review the current social housing priority bands. That is nominally done by Ricknolds. So while we can look at it, I would want to set the expectation that it's quite limited on what we can do because it's primarily set by Ricknolds. But we can look at it, not a problem, you know, and make recommendations to improve future policy. Well, again, I said this to you last time, Councillor Reid. This, when we were talking about some other matters, this is what scrutiny does, and this is what we've been actively doing throughout on my scrutiny committee and undoubtedly on other scrutiny committees you have attended. So, what does this all lead to? This is not a motion. This is an email that you should have sent to me, and I would have considered it just for the email, for the asking. I don't, and I'll say this to every councillor, Nigel said that he's got an open door, but as a chair of a scrutiny committee, just because you're not on my committee, if something's important to you, you can just email me, or you can just ask. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to ask you to withdraw this motion because it's not, I object to bringing this back to council. This is not the way we do things on scrutiny. It's considered properly as council. We make recommendations. We've made some fantastic recommendations recently on the Leisure Centre, which I will not go into for the chair because I'll go on and on and on about that. But it is something that we can look at, but I object to it being compelled to come back to the scrutiny committee, which you can't do as part of this motion. You can't bring it, you can't compel the scrutiny committee to bring this back to council. It would be our decision. So I would ask you to withdraw it, just email me, and we can look at it. And that's it. Otherwise, I feel like we would have to vote against this motion.
So I take it you're asking
So I'm asking Councillor Reid to withdraw the motion.
If he wishes to withdraw it, do you wish to withdraw it?
No, that's not an amendment to the motion, so do I answer that in my right of reply?
I think, no.
Not at this time.
Still other people waiting.
Not at this time.
Yeah.
No.
Do you want me to make...
You can withdraw it now, or we can carry on with the debate.
Yeah.
I think we carry on with the debate.
Okay then. And I will just have to say that it's been pointed out to me that if anybody wishes to make a point of order may only relate to the alleged breach of these council procedure rules or the law. Thanks for that. Next, Alex Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, at the scale of animosity to a motion like this. You know, there's lots of groups referred to in. Well, the wording is quite vague actually, but I take, in terms of those groups, we could be talking about disabled people here. We could be talking about veterans. There are lots of different groups who have different needs for housing. And I also declare an interest that I chair the East Midlands Regional Migration Board. I don't, again, think it's problematic for this motion, so I will still carry on speaking and voting. But, you know, it's not even just asylum seekers. I chair those meetings, and on a cross-party basis, there is concern from every single council that attends those meetings, not about immigration policy per se, or whether it's right or wrong about immigration, but that the pressure that creates for local housing. And we shouldn't just shy away from these issues because they're a bit difficult, and they might be seen to be racist if we start to discuss them. We need to discuss them up front. That's to me is the sensible thing. We have to have open, honest conversations about how we meet our own housing needs from within the country and how we meet housing needs from yes, asylum seekers, but people from Homes for through the Homes for Ukraine scheme, through the Afghanistan scheme that's coming down the track and is going to have significant demands. And I say this as someone who, as I say, chairs these meetings, very sensitive and contentious, but it's better that we have that debate. We shouldn't just shut down the debate, because ultimately all that we end up doing by doing that is letting the far right win, because, we seem like a vacuum of information. We seem like we're not prepared to discuss it, and the far right ultimately come in. And that's not a suggestion of Reform's position at all. That's just the issue. Saying it all for us, Alex. So no, it's not. I think this is really important that we have these discussions. Whether they're difficult, they might be difficult, but we ought to have them openly. And it's not just about immigration either. It's about all sorts of issues. I've had the same issues that Councillor Cupit mentioned in terms of the priority banding. Councillor Durrant mentioned that they were set by Ricknold, and that's a bit surprising as a scrutiny chair that he thinks that's the case, because it's actually set by the council, the banding. Ricknold may well be in the room, but they don't make the decision. And why would we ever give away our decision making to Ricknold? That's our role as a council. I think this is important to debate it. The NPPF changes, the impact of meeting other areas' housing needs and how that impacts. I think it's all worth a debate and worth a discussion. So I support the motion, and I think it's important that we do have those difficult conversations.
Okay, thanks. David Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. I find it a little bit concerning that we've got a member here who sits there and says, withdraw your motion, send me an email and I'll put it on my committee, but I'm not prepared to do it if it comes through council.
Yep.
That is an absolute offence to this council. It is trying to undermine what we do. Now, I'm probably the furthest person in this room that's away from Reform's policies. But I think what Alex has just said is spot on, because I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've never had a single person in my ward come to me and complain about an asylum seeker getting a house, but they have when people are coming from Sheffield and usurping them.
Yeah.
That's said every single week, without exception. So there is an issue, and it does need to be looked at. And I also think absolutely, and again, the lack of understanding concerns me. This is council housing. It's houses that are owned by us, it is our stock, and it is managed by Rickneld, and Rickneld manage it very well, but within the parameters of the policies that we give them.
Yes.
So their hands are tied by what this council says, and sometimes we need to review those policies. And I've sat there with senior members of Rickneld's management team, and they've said that they would wish we did change some of our policies because they're not in accordance with what they think are appropriate. So I agree with Charlotte. I don't think the banding is clear to people.
Yes.
So I think whether it's a case that we go with 2A as people with a disability, 2B with people with a long-term condition, I don't know. But that's the purpose of this, is to go and open up that discussion. So I think I'm going to support it, not because I think it's intended to be racist. Whether there are, I don't know, racist undertones in it. Hopefully they would be ruled out at the point at which it's discussed anyway, if they were. But it is an item that needs to be discussed, and I will support it on that basis.
Thank you for that. Ross Shipman.
Yeah, Chair, I think it's shocking, actually, and it just shows the political game playing of Councillor Durant, that he won't accept this motion if it's approved by, or he will vote against it because it's a motion on this council. But if it's an email to him, he will happily go ahead and do what's in the motion. I mean, that is an absolute farce, that's his position on this, and he doesn't see the hypocrisy in what he's saying. And in terms of the wider issue, and I might have to have a word with my son after this meeting, but I agree with Alex Dale on this one, that the fact that you can't just brush these issues under the carpet. If we are having to get homeless people from Sheffield, and that potentially there's an asylum aspect to it, we should not be shying away of trying to make sure the system is fair for all residents of this country, whether they are born here, whether they become residents after being an asylum seeker, ultimately the residents of this country upon their arrival if they're asylum seekers. And I'm absolutely pro we should be taking asylum seekers into this country, so there's no racist undertone in what I'm saying. We need to be prepared for it. And I think just by going, oh, that's a racist thing, it does give the far right an opportunity to absolutely lure people in, because if people see something that's unfair, they will be lured in by people that are then going to be giving them the rhetoric and the lip service which agrees or looks to agree with their position on something. We need to be strong, and this is what leadership is, leading the debate and making sure the system is fair for everybody in North East Derbyshire, regardless of what colour, race, background, their sexuality, whatever it might be. The system has to be fair. And I'm all for reviewing policies that we should be telling Rickneld what to do, because that is our role as the hosting organisation for Rickneld. We should be telling them what to do, not just going, Rickneld, what do you think? When it's our arse in stock and it's paid for by taxpayers' money and the income from the rents. So we should be telling them what to do. And like Councillor Angus said, I think they'd actually welcome it on quite a few issues. So I will be supporting this, because I do think we need to review the policy just to make sure it's fit for purpose. If Scrutiny look at it and go, yeah, it's absolutely fine, then we just move on as we were. But actually, they might find a little Easter egg in there somewhere that it's not been considered, and that we do change the policy for the better, so it's fair for North East Derbyshire residents.
Thanks for that. I'm sure we're all keen to see that it's fair for all residents and maybe people who need to move in. In the past, I've dealt with people, maybe they've been from Sheffield, but maybe they were in very difficult circumstances, and they have been given a move back into North East Derbyshire. Everything, I think, is considered on its merits, and hopefully we do have a decent policy. Anyway, I'll not carry on rambling. Nigel Barker.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think when I first read this, I did read it through half a dozen times, and I did find it a rather confusing motion, to be honest, Stephen. I did, reading between the lines, like Frank just said, you could have read it like that, but I put it down to a bit of naivety, and I know you're trying your best. You've took on a new role and things like that, but you have tried to put a lot of things in one go here that has ended up being confusing. And I fully accept there's lots in there that a scrutiny committee could look at. That's fine. But I didn't really get what you expected a full council meeting to do with that, apart from refer it to a scrutiny committee. Well, you could have done that in any way you choose fit, not bring it to a full council meeting. And I get that there's some emotion around it, and I get what people are saying. But they're the sort of things that the scrutiny committees are set up for. That there are issues, that we can always review policies, we look at different things, but you have put a lot of stuff in that motion, and to be honest, a bit like Michael said, and I know that we do set the policies that Rick Null managed for the different lettings and all that sort of stuff, but we can't accept our group in this format, this motion. And like we said earlier, we were more than happy for it to go to committee, for scrutiny committee to look at and work through those issues one at a time. Because to do it at a full council meeting, I don't know, it's too big. It's too big a motion in one go, that's what I'm suggesting.
Thank you for that. There's nobody else's name down there, so I'll... Oh, to tell a lie, Lee Hart's on.
Yeah, I'm on. Thank you, Chair. Just some of the comments I've been listening to, really, over this debate. I've heard a lot about that the scrutiny committee are shying away from these issues that have been raised in this motion. And I think it was quite clear from what Councillor Durrant said that these are ongoing. These are being scrutinised. They have been. So I don't think to accuse the scrutiny of shying away from this position is right at all. And I just think, how can we vote for a motion when scrutiny report back to Cabinet? They don't come back and report to full council. So we cannot support this in the way it's been written. And that's why it's been asked to be withdrawn, which you've not taken any notice of, and you brought it to us. So I'm going to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It does seem a bit strange, this, and I will have to challenge what Councillor Durrant said. Not that I expect a reply, because I know he's spoken already, so we'll be fair on that. But when it comes to referring things to a scrutiny committee at this council, this has been used as a tool by the administration in the past. Yeah. When we put a motion forward, you put an amendment on it to say, no, we don't want to discuss it here. We want to send it, we don't want to make a decision here, we want to send it to a scrutiny committee. And that's happened on several occasions. Yeah. So it's actually been used as a tool by the administration to do that. And basically what it effectively does.
You on? You're on.
Do you know the term being cancelled? I must have been cancelled about 4 times. I'm going wrong somewhere here. But it's been used as a tool by the administration to kick things that as I put it, into the long grass. We don't want to discuss it here. Here's an amendment, kick it into the long grass. That's actually being used by the administration. So you can't have it both ways. We can't, when a motion's put forward by my colleague to discuss something specific at a committee, whichever one it is, whichever scrutiny committee it is, you can't have both ways. It's got to be one or the other. And I can only await the next time we bring a motion forward and we receive that amendment saying, oh, we don't really want to discuss it here, but we will have it at a committee. You can't have it both ways. I'd say decide one or the other. One other thing I'd like to cover as well, it's the first time we've had a Reform councillor, and as you know, I'm a Conservative, we've had a Reform councillor at this council, and I did say to my colleague, it wouldn't be long before we're talking about racism and far right and racism and far right. This is just a standard motion put forward by a normal member, a member of a different party at this administration. We should respect that. We shouldn't, there's no point looking at me, Frank, like that. Yeah. All you can hear me. All we should be doing is respecting my colleague, and we shouldn't immediately descend into that. There's no need for it at all. No need for it. This is a standard motion. We should give it that respect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, just reading it on face value, and I can say this as an independent councillor, not aligned with any party whatsoever, there's some stuff in there that might be worthwhile looking at. The problem is that the ideological connotations become writ large, and then all common sense seems to go out the window. And I think that is the problem. I have got no party political axe to grind. There's stuff in there that might be helpful, but when you overlay that with an ideology that people are worried about or fearful about, then you get the sort of conversations that we get here, which are not helpful, I have to say. So, you know, if scrutiny want to look at some of this, I think it would be beneficial. But that ideological stuff is why I stood as an independent councillor, because it drives me crazy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, when I first read the motion, I struggled to understand it as well, and I read it several times. It looked as though there was a sentence or two missing. Having listened to Alex, I get more, I understand it more now, and it's a pity some of those comments that Alex has referred to weren't included in it. But I still have problems with it. From what Michael Durrant said, I don't think anybody's saying, as others have said, that this shouldn't be discussed. It's a question of how it gets on the agenda. And this council has a set of rules. It's all within the Constitution. So if the Tory group was so concerned about this, they have a right under our Constitution, I seem to recollect, under the improvement scrutiny rules, to put it on the agenda. If they have a representative on that committee, which they do, they can ask for agenda items to go on it. You don't have to bring it to this full council. And I think that's the difficulty that some of us are having. Items are being brought here that there is a proper mechanism for dealing with it in another way. I also share the concerns about bringing it back to full council, just for the sake of bringing it back to full council, because this council doesn't take this sort of decision at the end of the day. Scrutiny will make the decision, and then it will be an executive decision, will be my guess. And therefore, if the best route for any outcome of that scrutiny meeting is for it to go to the Cabinet, that is the right thing for it to do, not to come here and then go to the Cabinet. That's the difference in role of what a full council makes as opposed to a Cabinet or a scrutiny committee meeting. So I think that's what's being said. It's not that it won't be discussed. Councillor Durant said it will be discussed. He's got a work programme already. He's dealing with some of these topics anyway. You wouldn't want to duplicate that. That's not fair on the officers. It's not a good use of this council's resources either. But he will take it away. He will look at it if he gets the request. In fact, I suspect he'll do it anyway as a result of today, even if he doesn't get the request. And as best he can, within the overall work programme of that committee, they'll add some more work to it to look at some of the items in here. If they then conclude it should come back to full council, they've got the right to do that. If they think the better route is to send it for the Cabinet to take a decision, they will do that. But that's how this council works, because that's what our Constitution says. And I think we should stick to that rather than just bringing things here just for the sake of bringing things here. And we should be using this meeting for what it's principally designed for within the Constitution of the Council.
Councillor, I think I've got to the right of reply, Stephen.
Just on that last one, Kevin Gillett, so, and to the leader as well, I'd firstly say, so it's been said that it's a little bit naive of me to bring it here. Well, I got elected in 2023. I've never claimed to be a politician, but I'm a veteran of 8 years. I've served my country, served the Commonwealth, stand up for people's free speech and freedom of religion, no matter where they come from. I learn from watching people around me. So if this isn't the right place to bring things to council, well, predominantly it's been from the councillors I see sitting here and copying what they also do. I've taken things straight to the leader of the council, and he's worked with me on certain things, but things that have been of import to the council, where I think people need to have a debate on or certain issues, I thought it was well enough to have a conversation on. And that's why it was brought here. I look at the wording of it and take your feedback, Nigel and Kevin, and yes, look, I am probably one of the newest councillors with the exception of some by-election councillors here, and I may not be as experienced in the political forum as some of you are. However, I worked very hard with the monitoring officer and senior officers to make sure the wording on this was as ambiguous as best to look at certain figures which we couldn't actually look at. The whole point is, scrutiny is the right place for this, but it's got enough public interest that I thought it at least brought deserved weight bringing up in a public forum in terms of council change for all councillors to hear it. I seem to get an indication from somewhere that Labor was in support of actually putting this through, whether it came to full council or whether it was withdrawn and put straight through. So if Labor are actually going to take the ideological position and whip this into a negative vote, that's fine. But we have the reporter sitting right there, and we can go with the headline route of Labor is not concerned about social housing for its residents and is voting down a motion to actually look at it. I'm not saying that I'll do that, but if you want to be political, we'll be political. Now, on Frank's position, where he sat here and said, I hate this place being political, but then at the very next turn of phrase, he turns around and calls me a racist for being with Reform and having ideologies. This has got nothing to do with race or actually calling people out for political parties or where they've come from or how they've come into this country. We have 2,200 people.
We'll not have any chatting and shouting across the chamber. We'll try not to attack each other.
Can Stephen Reid please withdraw that statement? I never used those words.
He alluded to me being a member of Reform and being far right.
He didn't use the word, so...
Well, you alluded to it, which is where I left it.
Yeah. Could we draw to a conclusion?
Still my right to reply, is it not, Chair?
Yeah, carry on.
Thank you very much. Those of you on the other side that actually know me, Chair of the Business Scrutiny Committee, other Labor councillors from my district, know that I don't like being political. I'll get there if I need to, and this has always been in the best interest of the district. What concerns me is there are things here, having spoken with senior officers, that weren't picked up in the current strategy, in the current policy, and weren't addressed. And I thought it important enough to bring to council, as is our right, where we can have an open and honest debate for the public to see, as we spent $250,000 on this IT system, so we can have a democratic process. I reject the premise that this is not following the constitution of the council, because this is exactly what the Labor Party does, the Conservative Party does, the former Liberal Democrats do when they have something of import. This is not something I brought up having become a Reform councillor. I've been looking at this since December last year, and even earlier, looking at factors going, there look to be a bunch of things that will affect our social housing and our policy, and then looking at the numbers for homelessness and taking people from Sheffield, excuse me, dry mouth, taking people from Sheffield that will impact our banding with the NPPF changes. If that's debatable, we've had the debate here, but it needs to, the proper place to have this debate properly is in Scrutiny Committee. So unless we're completely changing the rules on what's been taught, I think some of the councillors in this place, before they criticise people of bringing things into places they don't need to be, need to practice what they preach. So I'm doing this for the public benefit, for the benefit of other councillors here to give them the information. And sure, if Labor want to withdraw or have said that this is important enough to go to scrutiny, I'd say this to Councillor Durrett. Would he agree to put those items on his agenda and he can still vote against it?
No, I don't think we're going to ask questions across the chamber now. You're winding up, and with
No, well,
your
like
right
when certain aspersions are made against one's character for the political party they actually stand for, then yeah, of course I do. And all of this is being put back as saying that this motion is to be in a certain way. This all started with looking at homeless veterans and everything else. This is actually something that affects our district, is relevant to our district, and is relevant for this place to look at. So these political aspersions, for whatever reason, are just not helpful.
Have you finished winding up? Thanks.
I've finished my reply, Councillor.
Thanks. Right, so I think we'll have to move to the vote then on the motion in front of you. All those in favour and all those against, please vote on your pads. Have we all voted? Looks like one person's maybe not voted or one's left the room. I don't know. So that motion is lost. One abstention, 26 against and 15 for. That motion is lost. Okay, so the next item is Chair's urgent business. I've got no other matter which is of urgency. So I'll thank you all for attending and declare the meeting closed and a safe journey home.